I am so excited to have with me Nikki Yelton, and we are here to talk about her shift from one-to-one to a hybrid model that she's actually been running successfully now for at least 3 years at this point. And so I think anything that you're able to run for 3 years without throwing it out or trashing it is a pretty solid program as far as online businesses go. So I'm excited to dive into your journey creating it and what you've learned along the way.
Yeah. Thanks, Laura. Cool.
So let's just start with where your business began. I know that when you and I worked together, you had already created the bones and the foundations of these offers, and there was some changes you were making. But take me back to when you were just doing one-on-one, and how did you decide to turn this into a hybrid program, and what was your initial steps to doing so?
Yeah. So I think there was such a combination of things. For me, it was when I was in that one on one model, I was so burnt out and it was just back to back to back. And it was just so repetitive. And I was really explaining the same things over and over again. And I did enjoy the work that I was doing, but I just felt after years of doing that model that it just was not sustainable for me. It wasn't sustainable for the goals that I had for just my life, my family. So I just knew deep down that I had to make a change. And I think I hit that breaking point where it was just like, okay, I need to get out of this model. So I think when I got to that point, that's when I made the decision that I wanted to create something more scalable, like a hybrid model, so that I can still do what I love and still teach people what I know that they needed to get the help, but do it in a way where it can be so much smarter and I can, not be so burnt out with just back to back one-on-ones.
Mhm.
So
Do you do
that's
you
kind of how it.
remember how many hours roughly per week you were seeing clients back then?
It was a lot. I wanna say I was seeing anywhere from, like, 6 to 8 clients a day, maybe 4 days a week,
Oh,
and
wow.
it sounds great, like, "Wow, you're so busy," and it was great in that sense, but for me, it wasn't about being busy, it was about, like, "I just can't sustain this,"
No, I mean, maybe other people think that that sounds great. That sounds
Right.
I mean, I love working with people, but honestly, that I would not. I don't think I ever got that busy. Like, I don't think I ever let myself get to a place where I was doing
Yeah.
quite that much one-on-one because I don't have the energy for it. You might possibly, but it sounds like maybe you don't either. So that's why.
No, definitely not.
So it sounds like that was probably a big motivation. So between the too many one-on-one sessions during a week and then also that repetitive education process, I'm sure that was probably a big motivator as well to create something. Tell me, what was the initial jump into the hybrid program like? Because I know that a lot of people, they get nervous because they don't really know how to create curriculum. They don't know how to do group programs. They don't know how to do community. They don't really know how to do the scalable deliverables. And I think a lot of people think it has to be this like huge drawn out, 6 to 12 month process of designing a program before you start selling it. Was that your experience or did you do it differently?
So I remember feeling all of those things when I first wanted to get into that hybrid and feeling like I needed to make it this grandiose, big ordeal. And that's just like in my personality. But I just didn't have that time. Like I didn't have the time to spend while also working on clients. And if I took time off of clients, I wouldn't be making the income that I needed to sustain the business in the first place. So I actually built it as I went. So it wasn't ready and like turnkey right away. It was something that kind of gradually evolved in time. And what I really just did was I took all of the things that I was normally sharing with these clients that I was seeing. So, like the materials that I already had done, the process that I already had done. And I would just, when I could, put it into, it's really just picking a portal that you want to go with or like an online platform and I would just build it over time. And I didn't change anything with the one-on-one at first. So what I basically, and I'm like trying to remember how I did it, but I remember telling them, hey, there's this portal that I can put you in and it has some, maybe it had some recipes in there or it had some of the guides in there that I would give them anyway. This way it was kind of all into that one thing. And
Mhm.
that's just kind of how it evolved. So I wasn't changing anything for that one-on-one for a while until I did feel like it was at a point where, okay, everything was in there now, and I can now sell that with the deliverables and make it an actual hybrid program.
Mhm. How long would you say that that took you roughly? 'Cause I know we're talking about like 3+ years ago at this point. So,
Yeah. It's hard to remember, Laura, but I wanna say it was probably about 6 months.
mhm,
Probably about 6 months.
mhm.
Mhm.
Looking back, do you feel like you would have done it that exact same way, or do you think you might have done it, differently when it comes to the offer or the design process? I'm just wondering if you learned anything along the way that if you had a time machine, you could go back and tell yourself
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because I think when I did it, it was just like I just didn't have a choice. It was like I just gotta it was almost like I couldn't really think it out much. It was just like, figure it out as you go, right? And what it was when it started is not what it is now. It evolved, it changed. It's still, improving because it's still being built really, even though it's been 3 years and it's done and people have been in it and, getting great success from it. It's still evolving,
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, if I had all the time, and I wasn't so busy with those one-on-one clients, I probably it would have been beneficial to take the time and maybe just sit down and look at the strategy and the journey that the client would take through it so that I didn't have to kind of go back and do that later, which I did end up doing.
Yeah.
But I just needed to get something up and running and going. So it was
Yeah.
like a do it as you go, tweak later kind of thing,
Mhm.
at least in my
Right.
experience.
That
Mhm.
makes sense. I think, ultimately doing it versus not doing it, I'm sure, that's the if you guys take nothing else away from this conversation, it's that just start, right? Don't delay it. Don't try to find this perfect time to do it. But from an efficiency perspective, it sounds like if there's at least some level of plan of, what is the specific content that I'm going to produce? What is the journey? Because I do think it can be challenging when you have to go back and change things, but
Mhm.
it's more challenging than not having it all at all, right? Like, I'm sure that was still a better situation than when you were doing, however many dozens of client calls a week. But I do think a lot of time can be saved if some level of plan is brought in from the beginning so that first of all, you're not creating a bunch of content that maybe you didn't need to create to actually sell the program. And then the second is that you don't have to come back and like redo stuff because it was kind of like created without any sort of endpoint in mind. So, but again, getting it done is the most important thing. So it sounds like that was at the time the focus. And I do think there is a way to use your one-on-one sessions to inform what you're creating, and I'm guessing that's probably a big part of what you did is not necessarily trying to figure out this whole content plan, but really looking at, like, what are you already doing and what could you be turning into something that is scalable? Is that kinda like what your thought process was?
That's exactly what it was. It was, okay, I know that for every client that I see, I'm gonna do this exact thing, at a certain point in their health journey when they get to that point. And so it was like, instead of just going through this, because that was what was getting really exhausting, was going through the same guide over and over again. And so it was just like taking that guide and going through a Loom video and recording, hey, here's what you do. And it's like that just saved me so
Yeah.
much time
Okay.
just from that one thing that I put in the portal. And so it was really just things that evolved over time because I was already gonna go over it with that person. So it just was really adding, I think, so much more value to the client because then we could spend our one-on-one time talking about something else and not explaining a process that I could have just easily put into a portal that they can look at.
Yeah.
It was the same for everyone,
Yeah.
there would be personalization, and so it left the calls for more of the personalized stuff.
Mhm. Well, and now that you mention that, I do think you probably did actually have some level of a process, even if you didn't formalize it as a here's the exact content I'm creating for this program. Because
Mhm.
if you had that guide that everybody went through and it was already created, in some ways that was your plan, right? Like that was your structure that was in existence before you started doing the content. Because I think, and
True.
you can
Yeah.
tell me if this was your experience, it sounds like you had a fairly narrow niche as far as people generally needing similar things, needing similar changes to be made because they had similar problems versus I talk with a lot of people that want to create a program, but when we look at their niche, we look at their business model, there is no overlap. There's like, oh, this person came in and they're a vegetarian that wants to get pregnant. And then the next person that comes in is a 60-year-old guy with type 2 diabetes that needs blood sugar control. And it's like, people are like, how do I create a program for those two people? And it's like, you don't. Like, you literally wouldn't create a program that would be the same for those two people. So it
Yeah,
sounds to me like from the beginning of your creation process, there was always some level of consistency and repetition that everybody got a lot of the same stuff. Maybe not 100% because we're all different, right? But a lot of that, hey, there's some foundational things that you need to do to get this result. And that was, it sounds like what the guide was based on that you were already using in your 101.
exactly, exactly. It would have been impossible for me to put anything into motion unless the process was the same. And yes, everybody's has their own unique chemistry and everything like that, but I was helping the same niche. It was the same type of person who I was helping. And so they had to go through a certain process. And then we personalized along the way. And that was what I can't imagine, creating different plans for different people. It just would be so hard.
Yeah. And then creating a portal that has all the worksheets. And it's like, now how do they find the worksheet that's relevant to
Yeah.
them? And it
Yeah.
just be a giant. So
Yeah.
we don't do it that
Yeah.
way. Um,
Exactly.
so
Mhm.
when you made that change and then eventually got to a place where you then changed your actual offer to reflect that program, what was the impact on you and your business? Like time, financial freedom, anything like that that shifted for you?
It was so like, it was just night and day. I mean, I got so much time back that I could invest back into the business and back into a team to give them more time so that things can grow. I just had a lot of my life back too. I wasn't feeling so drained, and that improved my relationships with like family and everything. So there was just that part of it. But then from a financial standpoint, I was seeing so many less people, but I felt like I was doing more quality work. I was more present. I was happier. And financially, I was also doing so much better as well and it sounds like, okay, how could you go from all those people to maybe half of that and make more? But it was because they were just getting so much more, and it was just more quality work that was going into it.
Mhm.
Uh, so yeah, that's how I would say like life changed from there. And it was just I think when I made that shift, I realized like, hey, this is something that I feel so aligned with. It's something that I can stick to long term. I actually love what I'm doing. And I just found a new joy for the line of work that, we're in, where I was losing a lot of that when I was just stuck in that burnout mode. So it changed so much for me.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, I'm really curious to hear what do you feel like the impact was on your clients? Do you feel like was their experience just stable? Do you feel like they actually got better results? What was your just as you watching how that program was impacting the people you're working with, how do you feel like that affected them?
Yeah, I think it was the results that they were getting was so much better because there was also ways for us to measure, and I just had more of I think they enjoyed the process, and even though they might not have communicated that to me, I think people enjoy a process. I think they like to know, "Hey, this is how this works. This is a system. This is like, oh, wow, this is like really laid out professionally." And I did have a lot of feedback where people said, "Wow, this is just there's like a lot in here. You really thought of everything that we need." And it's just from listening to those clients that I met with before and just seeing them over and over again, it's like you kind of know what people want in a program. So I think that, yeah, I think I just noticed an improvement just overall with compliance too, because so many people know like when you're in that one on one, back to back model, you might see some clients a couple times, 2 to 3 times, and you never follow up or they don't follow up because you're so busy and you don't know if they see progress. Whereas if you have a client who goes through this program and they commit to it and they follow through to completion and they fill out their post forms, it's like you can measure that. They didn't just see you for a couple sessions and then fell off. They really stayed to the end, right? So I think that in that aspect, it held them accountable.
Mhm. And I ask because I think there's this belief, especially with I don't know what it is about dietitians. I feel like we've just been kind of trained in a mostly unhelpful way for business growth. There's this fear that if the deliverables are turned into this one to many, whether it's a curriculum or a group coaching call or, anything, that it's going to be negatively impacting their clients' enjoyment of the experience, of their results, of how, how happy they are with the service that they're getting. And so I feel like what you just shared is super helpful for people to know that obviously not we're not saying just because you have curriculum that means people are going to get better results. I think there's a way to create good curriculum that creates better results. It's not just like, oh, because there's videos, people get better results. But all of that said, I think it's really great to know that you can create a program that actually is even better when it's not just one-on-one. I feel like there's this belief that one-on-one is the highest value of service. And honestly, something that I have told a lot of my clients is that there's a lot of stuff that people, when they hear you say it in a one-on-one session, they don't even remember what you said. And then you never say it again to them because, oh, we talked about that last week. But like they didn't even remember. They barely even remembered half of what you said during that session. So then they leave and they only got 50% at best. Probably it's less than that, right? But like they only got a portion of what you even shared because there's a lot that they're learning. They're probably a little nervous. Like it's like, oh, I got to get the most out of this session. And then it's like maybe they never even actually got to use that information because they didn't have an opportunity to actually take it in and absorb it. And I feel like when you have a program that's designed for somebody to come and watch videos and do worksheets and they could watch a replay and that kind of thing, they're able to actually get way more out of that because it's not this like high pressure, get as much as you can out of that one-on-one session and then you're on your own for the next couple of weeks. So I do think, when done well, that curriculum that you create can actually be even more valuable than a one-on-one session because there is the opportunity to like pace your learning and, go back and listen to something if you are like, what did she say about, inflammation or whatever? Like they can go back and watch that. And it doesn't have to be this, hey, she said it once in a session I had a month ago. And now I don't remember. And now I can't actually take action on what she told me because, it was in one ear out the other. I was like, worried about making sure I was giving the right answers on the call or something like that. So I do think that is something that's valuable for people to not only hear, because I can say it until, I'm blue in the face, but actually hearing someone who's doing it and seeing the results they're having with their clients is really valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's so true, Laura, everything you just said there, and I could just relate to that so much just thinking about clients because they'll watch a video and that video answers all of the questions that they were gonna come on and ask during the one-on-one. So now we get to spend our one-on-one moving their health forward instead of just answering the question. So I would always know if someone didn't watch a video because they would ask questions that were in the video and they could have
Yeah.
saved so much time and we could have utilized our time so much more. So it wasn't just about time saving. It was that they were getting so much more because they took the time to go through a training.
Mm.
And then it allowed us to kind of get on the call and personalize things to them or talk about some of their barriers or some of their mindset shifts that needed to happen. So we can get into such deeper work on our one on ones that we couldn't do if we were just going over a process, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, mhm. Yeah.
So as you were, because obviously this program being like 3 years old at this point, you've probably had a lot of opportunities for refinement, which is great. I think, most people when they're starting a program, it's like you just gotta get the stuff out there and go kind of nose to the grindstone and produce stuff. But you, I'm sure, have had an opportunity to go back and revisit things, maybe make some changes, experiment with some stuff. So what have you learned in the last couple of years as you've been working on refining the program? You're not creating it from scratch anymore. You're really in a refinement and improvement phase. Is there anything that you learned by going back and saying, actually, that should change and this should be different so that it could be the best possible program?
Yeah. Yeah, Laura, it changed so much from the beginning. I mean, the program I was saying before, the program that it is now is not the program that it was when it first started. And it was refined. I would say every year since then it's refined and I'm still refining it to be not just what I feel is best for the client, but I really listen through surveys. I try to really pay attention to what people are doing and be observant in that way not to just accommodate everybody, but to really figure out, hey, let's make this even better. And how can we continue to improve? So, just some examples like when I started the program, I was like, I don't want to do any one on ones because I think I was so burnt out. And so I still wanted labs involved because I just felt that was just so aligned with me. I felt like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I want to still do it the right way. I want to base this program off of labs because I know how important that is for people to get that personalized approach. And so I started to do lab interpretations for each new client that came into this hybrid program through Loom videos. And so I would record a separate video per lab and I would put together a personalized protocol. And that was like the extent of the personalization. And then they would go through this hybrid program and there would be group calls throughout the whole thing. And there was really a lack of that one-on-one touch, even though it was personalized still, and there was still that aspect, and it worked for a while. I did that for a year. People had great results. They really loved it. They even wanted to continue with, kind of our next program that continues on. So I know that they enjoyed it. I know they got a lot out of it. But based on some other feedback, I felt that it probably would have served the clients better if there was a little bit more of that just personalized touch. And that was just something that I ended up going back to, not the whole way, but just putting some more aspects of one-on-one and adding value to the program in that way. And so I, instead of doing the videos, I said, you know what, they're gonna get an initial consult and we're gonna go over those labs in real time because from a time standpoint, it was really the same for me anyway.
Mhm.
I had to record the videos and that would have taken me, let's just call it 2 hours. And, I'm sure that going on with them, maybe even though it was a set time, it at least still was time that I was going to have to do anyway. So it wasn't
Yeah.
a huge shift, but that made the biggest difference. And people felt so like, okay, this is like a really great, like, wow, I get this personalized, lab interpretation with this practitioner and this program. So it was just like, it just added so much more. And I think that it really made the program better.
Mhm.
I had to test it first to see and actually get to that point where, you know, I got that confirmation that it was the right move.
Yeah. And it sounds like you could have theoretically stayed with the recordings. It
Mhm.
was it doesn't sound like it was a total disaster to do it that way, but
No.
maybe, just with your goal, making the best possible program and the feedback you were getting, it sounds like that was an executive decision to do it versus like, oh, this is actually literally not working and I have to do it that way. So I feel like a lot of people make decisions about like let's say lab testing, for example, in a program they either say, "Well, I can't include it because I don't wanna have to do one-on-one," or they say, "Well, the only way I can do it is if I do these one-on-one calls with somebody." And I think the recording option is interesting because it can work and it doesn't have to be in a one-on-one format like you went back to, but also you get to decide what you want things to be because if you're like, "You know what? I just feel better if it's done in this format," then that's obviously the right choice to make versus saying, like, I know, you're gonna be having your second child soon, and you might get to a place where you're like, "You know what? I don't feel like I can do those anymore. Maybe I go back to the recording, or maybe I have a trained team member that takes those over." It isn't, none of those decisions are set in stone, but it's like you're always trying to decide, how do I provide the best possible service while also not getting back into this, like, I guess I have to do everything one-on-one because one-on-one is the only way I can do it, right? So I feel like there's that learning process that you go through, and you wouldn't have known how the recordings were gonna work until you tried them. So you tried them, they were good, but maybe not as great as you knew it could be, and went back to the
Yeah.
more high touch service for
Yeah. And you know what, Laura? There's nothing to say that I won't go back to the recordings because some people loved them. I mean, they were like, wow, this is great. I get to keep this forever. And I love the fact that I can go back to it and it's something that, I could pause. So there was that feedback too. And some people still prefer that because we decided to give them an option. But like you said, it's so nice to have that flexibility where if I am in a season where, okay, I want to still run this, but I just can't stick to a set schedule for whatever reason, I can just still sign up a new client, but go back to those videos if that was something that, worked for me and I felt like I needed to do for a season.
Mhm.
And I could easily go back to the other method. It's like the program didn't change. It's just sometimes how it's delivered just had to be tweaked versus maybe like the season of life that I was in. So yeah.
Yeah, and if you wanted to, if there was like a price difference, right? If it was like, you know what, I think this program could still be really helpful without the labs, but I'll, because I'm not including labs and I'm not including one-on-one for that, I will do a different price point for that. And so I think it's cool that you have this foundational signature program that is because really it's like your core offer, right? Like people
Yep.
that to work with you, that's the offer, which I love that you're doing that as your business model. There could be future changes that you make that maybe do pull you out more. But then again, it could be like, oh, this is now a different offer. It's a different price point because it's not me or it's, not as much of me or anything like that. So I think remembering that like nothing is tattooed on your forehead, right? Like you can change things at any point, and just
Yeah.
because something's working for your current season of life doesn't mean it's going to be the same in 3 years, right? Because you're 3 years in, it's like, I know your life has changed a
Yeah.
lot
A
in the
lot.
last 3 years. So,
There's so yeah.
so it's something that I'm sure 3 years ago you wouldn't have necessarily had your current life phase to guide some of those decisions.
So true. Yep. Yep.
So I just love getting to catch up with what you're working on and what you're doing. And I know that we both, I can't remember the exact overlap, but like I think I was just getting pregnant as you were having your first. So I know that
Yeah.
we've kind of gone through a motherhood transition together. So for you as a mom, what has been the best part about running your business this way when it comes to how you want to show up as a mom and a CEO?
Yeah, that's such a good question, Laura, and it takes me back to that because I know we kind of experienced that in a similar time frame. I think for me, I've just been so much more productive as a mom. Like in my business, I just realized like I need to just focus on the things that are going to really move the needle, things that are really wherever my time needs to be, it needs to be just with the client, and then anything else really has to be delegated, you know? So I think when you say you're gonna do that your whole time in business, but it doesn't change, like, as much until you become a mom and you realize, like, you don't have a choice. You have to do that. At least that's my experience, but, I just feel like, yeah, becoming a mom, that was the biggest transition for me is really just becoming more of that, like, CEO role that I think was always there, but I just needed that push, and I think having a baby really pushed me to do that. And I think just yeah, the business changed so much since then because I realized that by having this type of an offer and this type of a program, it's just given me the flexibility to be at home with my son, still help people and do what I love, still run a business. And that was always my why behind kind of going on my own and starting this is it wasn't just to have a, you know, virtual practice. It was to be a mom, to be able to do that, but not also give up this career that I love. And so I couldn't do that if I was still in the one-on-one. So I'm so thankful that, the work was put in when I needed to before stepping into that role because it has made this transition a lot easier and it's just confirmed, that I can do both. So I'm sure you feel the same way. It's like you're nervous at first, but then when you actually get into it, you're like, okay, I can do this if things are set up the right way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and if things are not set up the right way, it's like you said, a big kick in the pants to get it set up the right
Yeah.
way quickly. And yeah, I mean, I don't think I enjoy one-on-one. I always love doing my one-on-ones with the clients that I work with. But at this point, I think I have maybe like 2 or 3 people that I'm doing one-on-one with as like an actual one-on-one offer. I do provide one-on-one as part of my shift program, but it's not the same amount as if I was like strictly one-on-one with a client. And I've had people ask me if I could, "Oh, can I just do one-on-one with you?" I'm like, "No, I'm sorry. Like I'm not just doing one-on-one because there's so much stuff that I'm not going to like repeat myself on a call with you if you could be in this program learning it on your own time and then we're just, workshopping stuff together." So, it is something where sometimes it can be hard to say no to people, partially because I enjoy working with people, partially because it's like they're offering to pay me money, it
Yeah.
can be very tempting, but it's like when I look at the overall goals of my life and my desire to spend more time with my daughter and not miss all of these major milestones that she's going through even like on a weekly basis at this point, it's like, you have to make those hard decisions, but you see like what is that vision that you're building and what aligns with that vision and what doesn't. And a lot of times the things that you were able to do before having a baby because you could just kind of like muscle through it. And I know you're a hard worker like I am. And it's like you just show up and you work hard
Yeah.
and you make yourself available. And when you have a baby, it's like they're my priority now. Like, I love my business, I love my clients, but, like, you're not more important than my baby. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
it's one of those big world reorienting
Yeah.
experiences for someone who's already got a business that then has a baby. But I agree that there's just certain things like you almost couldn't do what you were doing before, really, unless you just dropped your kid off at daycare for the whole day. And I know you don't want to do that as much as I don't want to do that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, I would just love to hear if you have any last words of wisdom for our listeners. Our listeners are either wanting to get their business started, or maybe they already have a one on one business and they are inspired by the opportunity to create something that is more scalable that can help them make just as much, if not even more money in less time. So, do you have any final things you'd like to share with our listeners that can help either encourage them or give them a path to start on to build a business like the one that you have?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I would just say just do it. Just, start. Just start somewhere, do it. I think what I said to myself when I kind of started making the shift, because it is very scary to make a shift like that. And, our limiting beliefs can sometimes get the best of us. But one of the things that I kept remembering and just reminding myself is, you know what? If this doesn't work out, I could always just go back to what I was doing that was kind of although it wasn't what I wanted, at least it was there, So I think that as long as you have that client base, you could always just go back if needed. But chances are it probably won't happen and you won't need to because it's going to be successful. And I think, yeah, just if you believe in it and, you really feel that this can be impactful for people, just make the shift, make the change, put in the work because it might be a lot initially and upfront. It might take you more hours and nights and weekends, but to get to that place where you're able to scale and you're able to, take in more income and be more impactful with your clients, it's just awesome to be in that place and it's just so worth it. And you're going to be so thankful that you did it when you look back. And that's just been it probably sounds easier, right? Coming from me talking about it, but I remember being in that place and feeling, just scared about it. And I'm so thankful now looking back that I did.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think we can probably create a lot of the best things in life are probably a lot of how is this gonna work? Like becoming a mom, right? It's like you have no idea, no matter how much somebody tells you
Mhm.
about what it's like, you literally have no idea what it's gonna be like until it's happening. And I know you would agree with me that like it's probably one of the hardest things, if not the hardest thing you've ever done, but also most rewarding, or at least top 3, right, as far as, things we've done in our lives. So, there was a quote I heard recently that was, I think it's like a Chinese proverb or something, and they said, "Before things can be easy, they have to be hard." And I think that's something that, I know we all want everything to be like 30-minute abs or like 30-day business,
Yeah.
six-figure business in 30 days or whatever, and I think people they almost look at the work as being like, well, if it takes work, then it must mean that I'm not going to succeed, or it's going to be too hard, or I can't do it if it's too hard. And I just feel like people just need to be okay with the idea that the beginning is scary and hard and you don't know what you're doing and you're going to make mistakes and it's not going to be perfect. It's not even probably going to be that great, right? It's probably going to need a lot of work to get to a place where it is really good. And just being okay with that and knowing that, if they're hearing your story 3 years in, putting them into that future self position and saying like what Nikki has is because she did that hard stuff to get to where she is. And now she can reap the rewards and it's not as hard anymore. And it is more successful and it is just working more easily, but you didn't start there. You had to start with the hard and the scary first.
Absolutely. And I could almost laugh thinking about like what it looked like from the beginning. I wish I took like screenshots or something because I think you always say this, Laura, done is better than perfect, right? And that was, I think, just I had to stick to that. Like, let me just get this done and then it will evolve over time. And I think if you go into it that way, knowing that what it's going to look like at first, you are going to constantly be able to refine it and it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be. It just
Oh, it literally can't be. I mean,
it can't be. There's no way. Yeah.
yeah.
No way. And yeah, I just think you can't fail. Like if you have the heart to do what you're doing and you truly genuinely go into it wanting to help people and you're doing it for that reason, it's going to be successful. It's going to take a little time.
Mhm. Awesome. Well, Nikki, I so appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience, your journey, and just like the inspiration of what you're currently doing, about to be a mom of two,
Mhm.
and just such a successful picture of motherhood and CEO life. So, thank you for sharing so generously with our listeners.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was fun, Laura.